Welcome to When Not Yet Becomes Right Now, the podcast where we dive deep into the moments of transformation, the times when not yet shifts into right now and everything changes. I'm your host, Jen Ginty, and this podcast is all about those pivotal moments in our life journeys. You know the ones, when the hesitation fades, when we take that first step, even if it feels like a leap. It's in these moments that growth and healing begins. Each episode will explore stories of resilience, moments of clarity, and the sparks that ignite real change. From personal experiences to expert insights, we'll uncover how people navigate the complex journey we call life and come out stronger on the other side. Whether you're searching for that spark in your own life or just curious about how change unfolds for others, you're in the right place. We'll discuss the ups and downs, the breakthroughs and setbacks, and how to embrace the right now, even when it feels out of reach. Because sometimes the hardest part of the journey is realizing that the moment you've been waiting for has already arrived. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's get started. Hello and welcome to When Not Yet Becomes Right Now. Today we're joined by Tori Jenae, a trauma-informed relationship and confidence coach with over 15 years of experience in clinical psychology, energy healing, and soul-led leadership. She brings a powerful blend of lived wisdom, soul, and science to help high-achieving women and purpose-driven leaders navigate life's biggest transitions, whether that's divorce, burnout, or grief. On a mission to help 1 million people heal through her signature method, courses, and upcoming book, Tori is here to share how we can rise, reclaim our voice, and step fully into who we're becoming. Welcome, Tori.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful introduction.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here.
I am too. We've been planning this one for a little while, so it's been on my mind.
Okay, well, let's get into it. What is your origin story?
Yeah, I like to start where I am today and then paint backwards because it's kind of an interesting thing. So today I do have, 3 degrees in psychology. I live in Beverly Hills, California. I have a successful practice. But none of that was supposed to be possible for me. I was actually conceived in a heroin rehab facility to a mother who was luckily, by the grace of God, getting clean from heroin. My father was already married, so I was the result of an affair. He already had, and my mom didn't find out that until I was in existence in the pregnancy. That's when he divulged that, well, actually, I'm already married with 2 kids, so I don't really want anything to do with this. So I was born to a single mother who struggled with addiction. She did kick heroin, but unfortunately, drugs and alcohol like pills, cocaine, drinking, a lot of things, and at one point meth were still part of her journey. And she didn't get sober till about a year and a half before she passed because she actually OD'd, but she survived that OD. And there was just a lot of trauma, a lot of difficulty, kindergarten through 6th grade. I think I went to 7 different schools. So there was many boyfriends and husbands, and they were all addicts too. So I was really surrounded by nothing but chaos and trauma and addiction, everything from neglect to abuse I've experienced. And that was just my childhood. So I left at the time at 17 years old. I took care of myself. I helped raise my little brother, put myself through university, never took out a single loan. I paid cash for everything because I had to. I made too much money to qualify for all the free grants already because I'd already been self-sufficient by the time I went to college at about 2021. And then in my adulthood, I had all of my family start passing away. So my oldest sister first, she died of a drug overdose. Then my mom passed. And the grandmother, who was like probably the only person, my brother's grandmother, who helped raise me in some normal capacity, my father passed. So in a 10-year span in my adulthood, I lost everything: my health, my money, my marriage. And that was a long-term marriage to a good man. Again, gratefully, we're still good friends, and we split amicably. But it was the longest relationship I'd ever had. We were together for 18 years. So that was a big loss. It was just no longer aligned, but it was kind of like everything I worked so hard to build was gone. And so what I teach comes from a place of experiencing, transforming, and surviving profound trauma, the kind of grief that will crack your soul open, the kind of loss that, there isn't anything I haven't lost yet. I've been cheated on, I've been betrayed, I've been abused in every single way. So I just love to share that because A, I don't think we talk about that stuff enough. And B, I want people to know that, yes, I've got the fancy degrees. Yes, I've done multiple trainings, but the biggest experience I bring is that I've walked through the fire. I've lived this stuff. I've had to heal it. I've had to feel it. I've had to live it. And so that's where I really love to share how to do those things because I've had to do the hard things myself. And I've also because I come from a very long line of drug addiction, I decided before I ever started to become sober completely at 21. I just thought that like for me, drinking, drugs, all that stuff was Russian roulette. So I've also walked through all of these things without a single drink or Xanax or anything. I've done this stone cold sober from day one. So I love to teach people, how do we get through anything? How do we heal? And how do we really become powerful creators of our life?
Well, you are definitely a strong and powerful woman. There's no doubt about that. I can tell you. And it's so interesting the way that we align ourselves when we have walked the walk, that a lot of us make the decision to do something to help others who may be in that similar situation, right?
Absolutely.
Um,
And that's the
it's
greatest gift, is like turning my pain into my purpose and making my story of survival someone else's guide.
absolutely. And you talked about how, your mother was an addict throughout her life, and that you also ended up in relationships with addicts.
My
Is that something that is typical?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And luckily it was my early relationships, like in my teens and like early 20s. The man that I ultimately married, he didn't have a major addiction, thank God. But absolutely, my first boyfriend was a drummer who did a lot of drugs. And so, and we lived together, and it was chaotic, and it was messy, and there was yelling. It was everything I grew up with. And what I love to explain to people is that the way our love maps formed is the first loves that we had. That feels like love. So even if it's chaos, even if it's negativity, even if it's yelling, if it's all the things you said you'd never do, that is imprinted in your nervous system, in your psychology, as this is what love looks like. And so it's not our fault, but it's our responsibility to heal within ourselves. I always joke that, like, for me, particularly when I was younger, I mean, tall, dark, and emotionally unavailable with a drug addiction was the sexiest guy in the place. Or if he
Yep.
had some mental emotional problems, oh, I will heal him, right? Like,
Yep. Yep. Same. I've been there.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So I love to
S-
share that so that we know that, like, we're not broken. There's nothing wrong with us. That is just what was imprinted in us as love. And there's so much we can do. And the first step is recognizing that that's what it is. Even if it's just having a critical partner and you're like, oh my gosh, like my mom was so critical of me. And I recognize,
Mm.
like, now I've got this critical partner. Or my dad worked all the time and he was absent. And so now I've got this partner who works all the time and is absent and isn't showing up for me. Like, there's so many parallels we can draw. And really, the purpose of romantic love is to heal our primary connections with our parents. So all of that stuff will show up in our love relationships, and it's designed to.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. And you said love map.
Mm-hmm.
What could you explain what that is?
Yeah. So love maps are different depending on who you speak to. My version of love map is, how was love in my psychology, in my wiring? How was it mapped? So for me, love was mapped as, I need to take care of you because my parents both struggled with addiction. My stepdad and my mom struggled with addiction. So it's kind of like my map was, okay, it's all right if you have problems. I don't need to have boundaries. I will take care of you. No matter what you do to me, I will still love you. I'll keep showing up. I will sacrifice myself if that's what I need to do. And no matter how chaotic you are, I'll stay calm. And that became my love map. And so that was how I thought love looked like. It looked like codependency. It looked like sacrificing myself. It looked like doing whatever it is I needed to do, never telling anyone that they hurt my feelings because my parents couldn't handle that.
Yeah, and it sounds like, you think your childhood is fairly normal because that's all you know,
Totally.
right?
Yes.
That's how I lived my life.
Yes. And we all think our childhoods are normal, and we typically don't even start recognizing it until we get out of, like, if you go to college or university, like that's when you start getting around other people. You start to notice like there's different ways in the world. Like I even kind of thought my childhood was somewhat normal, right? It's all I knew. And then I remember being a young psychology student at about like 19, 20, being like, listening to like what trauma was and all these issues. And it's like I knew that there was something wrong with my household because I hid it. I didn't really tell people about it. So instinctively, I knew that this isn't quite right and I knew I should hide it. But it wasn't until I started learning and hanging out with other people's families and saying like, oh, wow, like my family has really got some issues. And again, it's never about, so many of my clients have such a hard time because they feel like, oh, I don't want to blame my parents. That's such a cop out. It can't really be all about my childhood. It is. And it's not bad. Your parents did the best they could with what the tools that they had. Even my mom, she had a ton of trauma. Everything she did was a direct result of what happened to her. And at this point in my life, I have such profound compassion. I've forgiven her. I know that, God, she made me strong. Like she was tough. Like the things that she was orphaned by the time she was 17. She'd had my sister, she was forced to marry the dad who she didn't love just because at that time they made her drop out of school and get married. It was just like all these horrible things that happened to her, and she was doing the best that she could. And so it's never making our parents bad or wrong. It's saying what happened to me and what I learned about love and relationship does not serve me anymore. And so I want to heal that and stop that for my family. And that might just be codependency. That might be overgiving. That might be people pleasing. For me, it was a lot of things. It was codependency. It was addiction. It was toxicity. But we all have something in our family that we need to break that generational trauma.
Yes. Yes. I was thinking as you were talking, it was like generational trauma,
Yeah,
right ahead, square ahead at us.
absolutely.
And I'm not sure that people truly understand what the term generational trauma means. Could you maybe give a little bit of a description?
Yeah, it's such a new study, honestly, and this is something that we're learning with neuroscience, and I love to give this idea to you. You, as a being, your mother, women are born with all their eggs. So your mother was inside her mother. So you were technically inside of your grandmother. That means your genetic material experienced all the stress that your grandmother did. Then your mother experienced it, and it just keeps getting transferred down. So let's say we saw this, where they first learned this was with Holocaust survivors. So they found that 2 to 3 generations removed from the person who was actually in the Holocaust, they had the same exact genetic markers of stress in their bodies, even though it was like their grandmother who had actually survived the Holocaust. So they started to learn that stress transfers down through the genetic material. So that's one form of genetic trauma, is it literally can, like, imagine you had 3 generations of people, I work with a lot of people in the UK. Maybe there was massive famine. And so now you've never experienced food insecurity in your life, but that's a constant fear for you. It's because it was actually passed down through your genetics. And if we even look at it from an evolutionary perspective, all of us are born with certain fears. We are born afraid of heights, spiders, snakes, certain things that our ancestors passed down to keep us safe. It was like, this killed us a lot before, so we're going to kind of encode it into our genetics to be scared. And so we have very ancient nervous systems. So our old nervous system and our brain does not know the difference between the stress of a big tax bill and a bear coming out of the woods. And so that's why we just go into fight or flight. But when we, particularly through our genetics, like it can be through the genetic material, like something like they saw in Holocaust survivors. They also saw this in animal studies where they had one generation of bunnies, because they reproduce fast, so you can use them that way. And what would happen is every time they smelled peppermint oil, they would lightly shock their feet. So not like so much, but enough to make them scared. And then what they did is they had like 7 generations. Only the first generation was exposed to that stimulus, but every subsequent generation was still afraid of peppermint oil.
Wow.
So we're so much more wired to survive than I think we know. And so I love to look at this in your origin stories, Like I have two good friends who are Russian, and we've looked at this a lot with like, what was it like for their mothers were in communism, and how has that showed up in their story with like money and independence. And even though they came to school, they came to the US and they've gone to university here and they've essentially become American, that is still encoded in them. So it's like, what are the things that I love to have my clients like do kind of a brain dump of like, what were the stories I was told? What were the things I was told? I was told like money doesn't grow on trees. You can't trust men. You know, these are things that if we look at, they were passed down in our mother or whoever raised us, their person who raised them, you know, like these have been passed down to us. So I think it's mental, emotional, and then I even kind of look at the spiritual of how we gain this form of trauma that it's designed to keep us safe, but without that awareness, it really keeps us stuck.
Mm. Wow, that's powerful. And I used to call my sons little cavemen because because like they were born with all of these emotions. They were born with all these ideas in their head that they didn't know what to do. And I think after you explaining generational trauma, like even more so they were cavemen because they were imprinted on for so long, right?
Absolutely.
It makes sense.
And we
Yeah.
have to have
And I
that
think
awareness.
yeah, and I think another theme that seems to pop up, especially with people who go through childhood trauma, is growing up too soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, we call it parentified adults or parentified children because sometimes we become the parents. But yeah, we don't get to have like innocence or childhood. And that was definitely me. I mean, from the time I was 7 years old, I was helping to take care of my brother. It's like I had a baby when I was that
Mm.
young, and I would have to grocery shop. There was a lot of things I had to do to like survive. And so there's gifts in that, but it really does take away our ability to be cared for, to trust people, to not take responsibility for everything and everyone. And I think these are some of the core patterns too of perfectionism and people pleasing that I've seen.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. Especially if you're that child who had to do it. If you had, like you said, you had a brother that you had to raise. I had two older brothers that I basically was that kind of protector against
Yeah.
our abuser. I would like throw myself on top of them, that kind of thing. So it was always this idea that I was in charge of people's emotional capacities, right?
Yes. Yes. And that's such a powerful realization. And it is so limiting when we're in relationship because we feel responsible for them. And that's how we show them our love. And it's so big hearted. And to think that you did that for your brothers and what you probably saved them from because you were actually strong enough to hold it. Because I think about that with my little brother too. He's just tender. He's loving. He's got a
Mm.
soft soul. And I'm so glad that I was able to prevent him from breaking that. For me, it was
Yeah,
different. I was strong. Or, not to say, I say that you can be a happy woman or a strong woman. I want to be a happy woman at this point. I'm tired. I'm tired of
I
being
agree.
strong. So
Yes,
I don't want to promote strong. It used to be something about myself that I loved. And like now I'm like, I don't want to be strong anymore. I want to be vulnerable. I want to be soft. I want to be easygoing. I want, all these things. So I just like to I want to lay that foundation. Strength and courage is being vulnerable, is being held, is, all these things too. So, but yeah, it's like you were able to do that. And so many of us did, so many of us who survived childhood trauma did things that we had to do to survive, but they are things that will not let us thrive.
Mm. Wow.
And that's the hard
Another
part.
powerful moment. Wow. No, because I think back to the relationships that I've had with husband, boyfriends, even friends, where they don't mean to rely on me. They don't mean to put that on me, but it feels like they feel it from me, so they just accept it.
Yeah, because we show up and give that. And it's such a gift, right? It's like, wow, this woman is going to take care of me. She's going to handle things, and they get to relax. And
But do we?
exactly, that's the thing is like that reciprocity is so important. And it's hard because when you grow up with difficulty, and I even like to remind people like this, my parent was an addict, but your parent may have just been chronically stressed or sick or emotionally checked out. Those all still kind of put it emotionally back on us, even if it wasn't traumatic per se. There was still an energy of, I've got to take care of this. I've got to take care of myself. I've got to take care of my siblings. And so it shows up the same way. And then we don't know how to receive care because we didn't ever get it when we were forming what we call attachment. So it's like, I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't know how to let somebody take care of me. My ex-husband was the first person I'd ever trusted enough to actually do stuff for me. Like, there was a funny story when we first got married, and we'd bought like a little condo, and I had the flu really badly. And I came like crawling on my elbows, like army crawling out of the bedroom to the kitchen. And I'm like crawling across the floor. And he's looking at me like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm thirsty. I really need water. And he's like, why didn't you just call for me? And it was like, I had never been able to call to somebody to get me water. So it didn't even occur to me that I could do that. And so those are the moments that we don't recognize, like, oh, I don't reach out, or I don't even know how to do that. I don't know what my needs are. And that's a big one I work with on women. They don't know what their needs are.
Yes. I still searching. Still
And it's a
searching to this
lifetime.
day.
Yeah. And as we grow, change, evolve, those needs, they do change. But I think as often as women, we're so used to giving, and particularly if we had a challenging childhood, we are wired to be the giving, doing, being one. And so it's like, gosh, like if I thought about it, like what is it that I actually need from this person in my life? And our romantic relationships, like I said, they're the most profound places in which we learn. And they are designed to be that way. It brings up all of our stuff. Our kids, our partners, and sometimes friends will do it too. But I've seen that, we really bring our most wounded selves to our relationship. And it's meant to be that way because that is the container in which you can heal it.
That makes sense. Now, do you think that this taking care of others, did that make you think, oh, I want to maybe go into psychology?
Yeah. So most of us with traumatic childhoods end up being of service. It is just like, I think we're designed that way, and it's not a bad thing, but we have to learn how to take care of ourselves and heal ourselves before we really start doing it with others. But my ex-husband was like head of a large fire department agency. And it was interesting because it was the same thing with firefighters, doctors. Like, I've looked into this, doctors, nurses, firefighters, psychologists, therapists, all these people typically have difficult backgrounds, and we are comfortable rescuing, saving, taking care of. And so it's a great gift. But the thing we have to really be mindful of is, how am I avoiding taking care of myself? How am I taking care of others in a way that actually makes me not work on my own healing, on my own health, on my own wellness? Like, they did a large study on nurses, and they're some of the most unhealthy people around. And it's so sad because they're so loving, and so many are so giving and so loving, and that showed that, like, again, that over giving, that overdoing, that nurturing can really, it's a double-edged sword, and we have to be very mindful of it.
Yeah. That reminds me of the story of when I was in labor with my first son. The nurses were trying to take care of me, but I honestly didn't know how to let them. And one nurse looked at me and she says, "You come from like a childhood abuse background, don't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do." And she's like, "Yeah, because you're not letting us take care of you. You're trying to do this all on your own." And she saw that in me. And I don't know if that was a similar background for her, but when you say that nurses go into that field for those kinds of reasons, it makes me now think, oh, she may have also been in that background to recognize it in me.
Yeah, she probably was, and she'd probably seen it, and she was now able to recognize it in others. And what I love to, like, and I know you get this, but like for our listeners, like, there's nothing wrong with us that we can't receive it. It's that it was not safe to receive care. It could have come with strings. It could have come with backlash. It could have, like really blew up on you, or that person who was caring for you just wasn't a safe person, so you couldn't receive it. So again, it's like there's nothing wrong with us. That's how we kept ourselves safe, is by pushing that away. It's by saying, I've got it. I can do it on my own. I don't owe you anything, or you're not in my space to make me unsafe. So
Yeah.
it's a very unconscious protection mechanism that takes a lot of awareness and work and self-trust to go into.
Yeah. So you are pretty much on your own. Is your brother still with you while you're in college?
Luckily, his grandmother, he lived with her for a while. Unfortunately, her son, who was his father, would still be in and out, so he still was exposed to that trauma. But for the most part, she did feed, shelter, and love him, and so that is good. And then he came to live with me again when I got married and had a house. So
Oh.
he ended up, but luckily we're still very close. He only lives a few miles from me now. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't talk to that boy. Well, he's a man
Aw.
now, and as you know, you have sons. Even though he's 6'3" and like
Mhm.
190 pounds, he'll always be 10.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
My son just turned 19 and 6'2", 190, right?
Yes.
And
It's so crazy when
just
they get that big. It's like, why are you so big?
right, right, exactly. And so you went into college and you knew right away that you wanted to focus on psychology.
I did.
Tell me a bit about the process for you.
It was kind of funny. I went into college and initially I was like, well, maybe I'll be a doctor. And then I went into that and I took my first like psychology class and that was it. I was like, this is exactly what I'm here to do. And came pretty naturally to me because I've been reading people my whole life just to stay safe. So it was
Mhm.
like, that's one thing too that childhood trauma gives us, is that we can really read people's moods and energy and it makes us very intuitive in a very specific way. And so that's another gift. And sometimes we actually have to learn how to turn that off, because we can
Mm.
over tune into people and really know too much about what's going on in their inner world and lose ourselves in that. So I always love to share that. But yeah, for me, I went into school. I was what they call it, a non-traditional student. So I always went to school close to me. I never really got to have like the college experience per se, because I always needed to work pretty much like full time I did work full time all the way through. And so I was like that evening, morning, I would literally like go to class in the morning at I'd do the 7 a.m. classes. I'd go to work till 5 and then I'd do like the 6 p.m. classes. So
Mhm.
it took me like 7, 8 years to get 6 years of, 6+ years of college in. But I did it. And I'm the first person to graduate, I think, high school and college in my family.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's really like, what do we set our minds to and what do we want to achieve, no matter what we've come from? Like some part of me knew that if I was going to make a different life for myself and for my brother, that I was going to have to get an education. And so I really put a lot of effort and energy into that. And I didn't even, when I was younger, I didn't even think about like having kids or anything. It was like, okay, I've got to get through
Mm.
school and I've got to get financially stable, because that was something I'd never seen a woman do in my lifetime.
Yeah, just breaking barriers.
I was sure trying. Nearly killed myself doing it.
Yes.
Burnt myself out. But I did it. My
Now,
cat loves
were
to
you
make it.
married?
I
Oh,
was.
mine will probably jump up.
uh, I met my ex-husband when I was 23, and we were together till I was about 43. So I think I got married to him when I was about 25. But he was definitely a positive influence in my life. And, I know that there's a lot of things that had we not had that partnership and shared bills and done all those things together, that I definitely wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for him.
I'm
And
so glad that you keep a nice relationship with each other.
yeah, it was, we didn't divorce because we hated each other. That was actually what it was hard about it. And I just always share the story because I think maybe other women can see themselves. Like, he's a good guy and I'm a great woman, but it was like we had got together so young and I don't think I knew who I was or what I truly wanted or needed in a partner, and probably the same for him. And we just had, because I came into that marriage before I had done my healing work and before he'd done any of his, I think we just created so many bad habits in our communication. Like there's a lot of sweeping things under the rug and not wanting to talk about it. And we're both highly avoidant. So we just avoided all the problems. And then they, just became mountains that we could no longer cross to reach each other. But there was still always a level of like love and respect there. And so even though our divorce wasn't easy, because the divorce just isn't easy, having built a life for 20 years and then have it be all gone in 3 weeks after doing, thankfully I worked really hard to be loving, go high no matter what was said or done, call out behavior, and then step away when it wasn't working and just be like, hey, come back when you're calm again. And then we got through that. And so that things fell apart in 2021, filed for divorce in 2023. And now in 2025, I definitely feel like we're still incredibly supportive of one another. We still talk. We both have, he has a girlfriend, I have a boyfriend. We both know about that. I've met his girlfriend, so we still have this like amazing relationship. And I think, and he's someone I will always love and I'll always be there for. And I know it's the same for me.
Oh, that's so wonderful to have that kind of energy together.
Yeah, you can't spend 20 years of your life with, or at least for me, like now, again, he didn't do anything horrible to me. So I know this is different, but like getting to a place in my life where I can love and forgive and still have boundaries has been a big life lesson for me.
So when did you decide to get into the energy healing part of the, I'm assuming that you wanted to add this
For sure.
to what you did.
Yeah, so I've got a clinical psychology bachelor's and then I've got a master's in psychology, and then I've got a secondary master's specialization in transformational coaching, because I decided in school, like after learning to be kind of doing the therapeutic role, I was like, it's not completely aligned. But I came out of school and I had my coaching practice for like 2 years, and I really realized that like, okay, people can talk about things, but it's taking so long for them to actually ground that knowing in their body and not have the reaction. So I really saw that there was like this missing piece of like, if we're not healing the body, the nervous system, the visceral reactions that we have when we get triggered, when we get upset, when something bad happens, we're not really able to mentally take over. And then in about 2015, the book, The Body Keeps the Score, came out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a famous book on trauma. And it's really all about, it's a meaty book to read, but I think it's really designed for practitioners and people who do this work. But the basis of it is that all chronic stress and trauma is stored in the body, in the nervous system, in the way we react. So it's unconscious to us. And so that was something I already really guess I knew from my own experience, but I was like, how do I find something that I can do with clients that can be body-based, but I can do it from anywhere in the world and I can teach them how to do this. And that's where I found, through a good friend of mine, energy psychology. And she had described it as something too, like she had a very traumatic childhood, and she said she'd found a therapist who did it with her. And like, she's like, I know I wouldn't be where I am now if I hadn't done that work. And so the energy psychology has been around for like 50 to 70 years. It's well studied. It reduces cortisol. It does a lot of things, but it's basically like tapping points. EFT is another form of it. Energy psychology is a little bit different because we have different algorithms. We do blocks to healing. It's just a little bit, it's kind of like, I jokingly say, I love EFT. I'm trained in EFT too. So I always say energy psychology is just EFT on steroids. It just goes deeper on it's a different level. It's a longer process. It goes into like subconscious objections. So like as simple as something like wanting to lose weight, and I'm not losing weight. I can actually see, what are my subconscious blocks to losing that weight? Maybe it keeps me safe. Maybe and I've done this work on myself. Like eating chocolate was one of the few ways I knew how to self-soothe. I didn't want to give that up. And even though my mind would say I do, my body was like, no, girl, what are we going to do? So I
feel the same way about chocolate.
Yeah. And I still eat chocolate every day. Don't get me wrong. Now I can have like a little piece instead of like half a cake. But again, it's just like finding what are the parts of us that don't want to heal, and how do we get everybody online?
So is that what makes up your signature method?
It's a big part of it. Yes. And like it's being able to give people the tools to heal mind, body, and soul, to truly reclaim themselves. So it's like getting in touch with who am I at soul signature blueprint. How do I weed the garden of my mind of all the things that other people have implanted? How do I overcome my own inner critic and negative self-talk? Because we all have that. It doesn't matter what spirituality, that's another thing. I've studied spirituality for about 20 plus years now. Everything from the Vedas to Buddhism, when I lived in Japan, to Kabbalah. Now I'm into Kabbalah a lot lately, because that's been very interesting. But I find that understanding the soul aspect of it is also fascinating to me. But it's like, no matter what it is, they all have a name for it. In psychology, we call it the inner critic. In the Vedas and Buddhism, we call it the ego. In Kabbalah, they call it the inner opponent. So no one denies the existence of this thing. And so we have to have the tools to work with it and know that it's actually part of our growth and our journey to overcome it. And not that it's ever going to go away. It's always going to be there. It is wired into our psychology. It's learning how to deal with it and know that it's going to find new ways to sabotage you. And that's its job.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
How do you start work with a woman who's come to work with you?
I always do an intake and try to get to know them and their history and just like, what has happened, like what are some significant things that have happened, what are their biggest goals? And then I really look for what are the internal blocks between where they are and where they want to be. And it can be anything from love to success, for sure. It's the same process. But then I really design a very specific program for them. So if it's leadership, then we're going to talk about control and perfectionism and all these things and how to be a great leader. But if it's love, then we're going to look at attachment style and traumas and communication. But I really kind of do the same work in every vein. It's just we have a different outcome, so we might talk about different things. But I love to, if I'm doing a group setting, then of course we have a desired goal that we all do that is an outcome, and I take them through a process. But when it's one-to-one, I also still love that. And I think I'll always do it because there's just nothing more powerful than watching someone break through. And I do actually work with some men too. I'd say my practice actually used to be 50-50, and I think I'm more like 60-40 now. More women.
Okay. You mentioned groups, so you do also group therapy with your clients all together?
Yeah. So usually once a year, I launch a 10-person group. So I love it to be small and intimate. You still get to talk to me, of course. I really feel like obviously toward the movement of AI and all these things, we're going to be more disconnected than ever. And AI is a great tool, but it will just confirm your own biases, what you want to. And I use ChatGPT. I'm not anti at all. I actually want people to embrace AI. I just want them to understand its faults. It will just kind of confirm you, and you have to tell it to not do that. So if you're talking through something about your relationship, you have to say, show me a research study on this. Cite that research study. I want you to challenge my biases. I don't sugarcoat it. You have to train it to do that, or it will just say, you're right. You should have yelled at him. He's terrible.
Yeah. There was actually a South Park episode about that recently.
Oh, was there? Oh my gosh, I didn't even know, but I love South Park was hilarious. But I remember that show back in the day. But yeah, it's true. That's what it will do. That's what it's designed to make you feel good.
Right. And so, one character, one of the fathers, was constantly using it to create a company and that kind of thing. And his wife couldn't figure out how to get through to him.
Yeah.
So she started talking to him like Siri. She's like, oh, that must be so bad. Would you like me to help you with this, problem? And he was like, yeah.
Yeah. So, our psychology is really set up to be validated. It's very addictive, and we don't recognize that. And that's one of the ways that AI gets you to stay on there a lot, is it keeps telling you, you're right. You're so brilliant. And I trust me, I see it. And luckily I worked with when I did my yoga teacher training, I worked with a yoga guru who was very good about breaking our egos and very much about it's not you, you're not special. If your clients come to you and say, you're amazing, you changed my life, you're not God. And so you better not act like it. And it was hard at the time because it really breaks you down. But at this point in my life, I'm so great because I'm so grateful for that, because I really, just this morning, I have an amazing client. She's been through so much. She lost both of her parents. her partner, like her, I don't think she'd mind me sharing the story, but her dad was dying of cancer. She's only in her early 30s. Her dad was dying of cancer in the hospital. And so they were all stressed. Her mom died of a heart attack in her arms, and her dad died like
Mm.
days later. So she lost both of her
Ugh.
parents within like days of each other. Like, just so much stuff has happened to this girl. It's like,
Oh,
this soul is here for amazing things. But it's like this morning, we've broken through so many things. And she was just like, oh my God, like, I'm so grateful for you. And I'm just like, you did this. All I did was handle you the tools, but you built this house.
yeah. And that's powerful because you are empowering her to believe in herself.
Yeah. And it's like, unless I put you in a straitjacket and led you around, told you what to do, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
And any
So
healer who does that for you, run the other way. Anyone who tells you they have the
true.
answer and they'll solve everything for you, they say, I can help you. I think I can guide you in the right direction. Sure. But if they say, I've got the answer, the only answer, and you have to follow my method and I am the Messiah, run the other way as fast as you can.
Bye.
Yeah, because
Bye.
they're 100% their ego and they will do nothing but make you feel shame and like you're not doing things right.
And you're joining a cult.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that in our industry. It's really sad. And I have friends who are very big in this industry. And, like I was just with a friend of mine who was speaking at Lewis Howe's big thing of greatness. You know what I mean? It's like I'm around some of these people and not everybody's clean.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important to put out there for people too, that if a therapist doesn't feel right or is saying these like red flag kind of things,
Yeah.
that it's okay to say they're not the quote professional for me.
Yes. I always tell people, feel free to break up with your therapist. Like, yes, your therapist may trigger you at times, but you should still feel seen, heard, validated, understood, and you should still be seeing movement in your life, meaning you're gaining self-awareness, you're gaining understanding, you're maybe becoming a little bit less reactive. You're getting a little bit better each week. Like, you're not just going there and venting and nothing is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did the book come along?
So the book, I feel like, has been, it's so funny. I literally have been trying to write this book for years. Like, meaning I always start it and then something else huge happens. So I kept putting it off because it would be like, oh, I started writing the book and then it was like I experienced all those deaths. And so I had like 5 deaths in a row, and like then I went through, and then I was like, my divorce came. So it's just like one thing after another came, and I think I'm finally in a place to finish it now, because it's going to be part like my story, just because it is so crazy. But it's really a survival guide and resilience. And my friend last night was joking that she's going through a tough time, and we had dinner, and she's like, I need your book, and I need it to be called How to Survive.
Mm.
Good
title.
I was laughing. I was like, maybe that is right.
Sounds like a great title to me.
Yeah, so it'll be something along those lines. Because one of the first self-help books I ever read that like resonated with me was Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life.
Okay.
And it was really because Louise also had a very abusive upbringing. A lot of people don't know. It's in the very back of the book. You have to read all the way to the end. And she talks about like her own mother like tried to drown her in the tub, and she actually got started in this late. Like, she was 40, and she died at like 89, having founded the largest self-help publishing house to this day. You know what I mean? So it's amazing to see what she did. But so I think I'm finally at that place now at 47 where enough big stuff had happened where I think that story, at least this first book, is finally complete.
Yeah, I don't know. It's Louise Hayes.
Yeah, Louise Hay. She is actually the one who started Hay House. So
Oh, okay.
everybody from Gabby Bernstein to Lewis Howe, like they're all with Hay House. So she's like, yeah, she started that publishing house because there was no publisher for those kinds of books when she wanted to publish them. And Random House and all those things would not do it. And so she's the one who got Wayne Dyer going. And, a lot of the OGs in this industry, these are the people I went to see when I was young. And that's how I learned about them. And I did a training with her. But like, it's so cool to see like what her legacy had left.
Yeah, I did not know that. I'm so glad you told me that. Now I've got to read the book.
Yeah.
I want to read all about Louise.
Yeah, Louise was amazing. She'd been through a lot, and she turned it all into a huge empire to help other people. And almost every great self-help book you're going to read, whether it's Mel Robbins, I think she's published by them, like they're a lot of the biggest authors that you're going to find on a self-help book. Louise Hay is the one who started that publishing company.
Wow. What a wonderful woman.
Yes.
So tell me, Tori, where can we find you?
So you can find me easily on Instagram at Tori Jenae, so TORI.JENAE. Feel free to DM me, or my website, which is torijenae.com, one word, TORIJENAE.com. And both places you can DM me or apply to work with me and learn more about what I do, and also some free things. Like I have a free guide for people who want to like heal and get more confidence, but particularly in relationships. So it's kind of like, what are the 7 primary psychological wounds, whether that's an abandonment wound, a betrayal wound, a not enough wound, how that shows up in our relationships and how we heal that. So that's also a free book that you can download.
Oh, I can't wait to download it then. It sounds like something that's up my alley.
I think it's something I probably have all of them, but yes.
Oh, all that will be in the show notes. Do you know when the book will be coming out?
So my book, no, I'm going to be looking for a publisher, and well, slowly but surely we'll get that out. It's such a balancing act of like seeing my clients and writing. So I know my boyfriend's been pushing me a little bit on this too. Like, okay, have you written today? I'm like, I know. My good friend, Dr. Tara Swart, just put out her books, The Signs, and that is a New York Times bestseller. So I'm super proud of her. So it's very inspiring.
Oh, great. Yeah, I've been going down my own kind of memoir path. And, it's difficult to say, okay, I need to sit down for a certain amount of time and write. I have to just do this.
It is.
And it's funny because you see something that you really want to put together, but you keep forgetting to.
Yeah,
right?
It's hard. And we all have that resistance too. I always remind people, like the creative process, we resist it. We resist the next level always. And that's a normal part of the growth. And so just to see it, and I definitely see it in myself, and I'm like, okay, it's time.
Well, thank you so much, Tori, for coming on the show. This was a very empowering and, interesting conversation from a woman who is so strong, but you can also be happy.
Yeah, thank you.
Right?
Thank you for having me. It was such an easy conversation.
Yes, it was. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the podcast. This show is produced by Phoenix Freed LLC, and I'm your producer, Jen Ginty. We hope you found today's conversation insightful and inspiring. If you have a story of your own about when a not yet moment became right now, we encourage you to reach out and share it. You can find more information about being a guest on our show at whennotYetBecomesRightNow.com. Remember, you are not alone on your journey, whether it's a journey of healing, growth, or transformation. Every story matters. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time with another inspiring episode.